This is CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio.
Hello and welcome to Brass Tacks. I'm Zaka Jacob. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime Studio. The final phase is well and truly upon us. Tomorrow, Saturday, the 1st of June, you will see a little more than 50 seats going to polls across different states. But for all practical purposes, ladies and gentlemen, more than 480 seats have voted. This election may already be done and dusted. What are the big factors on which this election depends, on which this election really hinges? What could be the margin between the victory and defeat, whether it is BJP at 270 or 272 past the halfway mark, or BJP at 300 plus, or BJP falling short of 272? What is those critical X factors that could make the difference between an outright runaway victory for the BJP and the NDA on the 4th of June and them falling short? These are some of the X factors, and we'll start with the first big X factor, and this could make or mar this election. We have seen evidence of this in the assembly elections for not just the BJP, for other parties as well. But this is the election where this factor, the M factor, the mahila factor, will come right to the fore. So let's take a look at the elections in the past, in the recent past, where the mahila factor has played a dominant role. In the Madhya Pradesh assembly election, women voters outnumbered their male counterparts. Women were at close to 78%, males just 76%. So that's a 2% difference between the male and the female, and the BJP won. In the same assembly cycle, Rajasthan, in the 2023 assembly cycle, women were 79.7%, male was just 74.1%. So about 5% difference almost in that. Again, the BJP won in that election. Tripura assembly elections, women were 89%, men were just 85%, a 4% difference. The BJP won. In Uttar Pradesh assembly elections of 2022, big state, biggest state in India, women were 62.21%, male voters were under 60%, 59.34%, again almost 3% difference. So in a big state like Uttar Pradesh, we're looking at 3% difference between men and women. That is about 75 lakh votes across the 400 plus assembly constituencies of Uttar Pradesh. Uttarakhand, also in that same election cycle in 2022, small state, women were 67%, males were just 61%. Again, the BJP won. Assam assembly elections, if you go all the way back to the 2021 cycle, women were 82%, men were 81%. In the Lok Sabha elections of 2019, and this is the biggest clincher, women were 67.18%, men were 67.02%. So about 0.2% difference between men and women. And of course, we know the results, how the BJP won 303. Let me now go across to all our guests who are joining us. This is the first big factor that we'll discuss tonight, and happy to be joined by two fiery women spokespersons, Shazia Ilmi, spokesperson of the BJP, Mahima Singh, spokesperson of the Congress Party. We're also joined by Rahul Verma, senior fellow with the Center for Policy Research, Sanjeev Srivastava, senior journalist, also joining us. Shazia, I just outlined this. Now, the two states that we missed where the women voters made a significant difference, but the BJP did not benefit, is Karnataka in 2023, where women vote outnumbered male votes, and of course the Congress got a bulk of those seats. They got 135 MLAs. Again, women vote gravitated towards the Congress. And Telangana, again in 2023, where women vote outnumbered men vote, and the Congress won the majority there. So, irrespective of who is on the ticket or who is winning or losing, the women vote is making a difference. This time around, why do you believe that the BJP will be the beneficiary of that and not the Congress? Like the Congress, like I said, has benefited. And again, I can cite other examples. Mamata Banerjee in Bengal, Stalin in the DMK in Tamil Nadu. Women vote have decisively voted for these parties in the assembly elections. So why should we believe for Narendra Modi in 2024, the BJP, more women will vote, and that will be advantageous to your party?
I think women voters would not just definitely vote for Modi, they would vote also with a blessing and Ashirwad in their hearts, because this is what Modi means to them. It is not just his popularity, but his credibility amongst the women voters, amongst the senior citizens, amongst the younger ones, who kind of believe that every central welfare scheme that has actually been so successful has always had a woman at its center point. So woman is the fulcrum, and from the last 10 years, the whole idea of how the Prime Minister feels about Nari Shakti, Shakti, what is Shakti, as Shakti Swaroop for him, has been manifested in many, many ways. So whether it's the Awas Yojana, where the beneficiary becomes a woman because it is in her name that the house is registered and allocated, or it's the other schemes of Ujjwala, or it's about the toilets, or it's about the Mudra schemes and benefit.
No, but Shazia, these same women are complaining about price rise, about joblessness, about budgets being constrained. The same women are complaining about all of this, more than the men in fact.
Yeah, so women and men, it's just anatomy that differentiates them, but they're all citizens, they're all people. But if you want to talk about inflation, I can give you the figures. I think you have done it also a few times. Never before have we seen inflation being curbed despite the two black swan events that the whole world saw. And despite that, despite the inflationary trend all over, just see how Modi ji's economic policies have contained that. I can give you the figures for consumer inflation and retail inflation, and you realize that it's actually been checked. If you look at just various schemes where people benefit, so it is a woman at the end of the day, which is why women voters not just love Modi ji, they want to bless him and they want him to continue to be.
Mahima Singh, state after state from Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Tripura, Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Assam, and even the Lok Sabha election of 2019, where there was higher women voter turnout than men, they seem to have backed the BJP in humongous numbers. Why should they vote for the Congress party? Why do you believe women are voting for the Congress party this time around?
Jai Hind and Zaka, it is because the Congress party really means it when we talk about women welfare. And if I was to say in the style of a shire, I would say the Congress party has said to the women of this country कि तेरे माथे पे ये आंचल बहुत ही खूब है, लेकिन तो इस आंचल से एक परचम बना लेती तो अच्छा था. And that is exactly what we have promised under our 5 guarantees under Nari Nyay, where we have shown the way for 8,500 direct transfer every month to women accounts, 1 woman of every poor family, where we have also promised 50% reservation in government jobs from July 2024 onwards itself. Without any delay, unlike the BJP that has dangled the dream of Women Reservation Act in front of the in front of the women of this country with a fanciful renaming, a repackaging of the.
No, but you also voted for it.
The Congress
the Women's Reservation Bill in the Lok Sabha, you voted for it.
That is what I'm saying. That is what.
So if it was fanciful and if it's a carrot that they were dangling, why did you vote for it?
But they have. Because it is originally the Congress's vision, Zaka, but you also have to remember that the M factor that you are talking about and the M factor that Mr. Modi has been talking about is very different. Mutton, Machli, Mangal Sutra, Mughal, Mujra. When he talks about Mujra, it is the women that are being rather, I would say, derogated. So a Prime Minister uttering words like that lowers the discourse, not only generally of an election like 2024, but also the discourse that must focus on women justice, women welfare. But we saw him do otherwise.
Let me talk about the other big M factor, which is perhaps the biggest M factor in this election and has been for the last 10 years, which is the Modi factor. And I'm going to show this on our wall again as to why when Mr. Modi is on the ticket, and I'll come to Rahul Verma and Sanjeev Srivastava right after this in a second. When Mr. Modi is on the ticket, this is a national election, this is a general election, there is in some states anywhere between a 5% difference in some states 10%, some states even a 20% vote share difference when it's a general election, a Lok Sabha election. In the 2014 Lok Sabha polls in Chhattisgarh, for example, the BJP's vote share was 51%. In the 2023 assembly elections in Chhattisgarh, the BJP's vote share was 46%. So there's a difference of 4.5% in Chhattisgarh. You look at the next state. In Karnataka, this is a great example because in the 2023 assembly elections, the Congress swept. They got 135 MLAs. The BJP's vote share was down to just 36%. But look at the 2014 and 2019 Lok Sabha election results. The BJP had in excess of 50%, which means they had more than 1 out of 2. More than half of the vote share was that of the BJP's, the difference being 16%. In Rajasthan, again, 59% in the 2014 and 19 Lok Sabha elections for the BJP. In 2023 Assembly, it was 42%, a difference of almost 17% in vote share. In Telangana, where the Congress won, they got 66 MLAs. The Congress won. The difference in the BJP's vote share between Lok Sabha and Assembly was 5.5%. In the state of Tripura, the difference was 10% between Assembly and Lok Sabha, 38% in the Assembly, 49, almost 50% in the Lok Sabha election. In Gujarat, Prime Minister's home state, the difference was over 10%. In 2022 Assembly elections, BJP had 52% vote share. In the 2014 and 19 Lok Sabha election, they had more than 60% vote share. In Himachal Pradesh, the difference was 26%. 43% in the Assembly election of 2022 and almost 70% in the 2014 and 19 Lok Sabha elections. In Uttar Pradesh, 8.77% difference in the vote share of the BJP. 2022 Assembly, BJP vote share was 41%. 2014 and 19 Lok Sabha election, BJP vote share was 49%. Uttarakhand again, 17%, that's a smaller state. So Rahul Verma, what this essentially means is that when Mr. Modi is on the ticket, when it's a general election, there is a differential. It can be 5%, it can be 10%, in some states it can be 20%. And that is the critical factor, whether it was in 14, 19 or maybe even in 2024, because in 2024, again, the same question is being asked. Okay, Modi is on this side, who's on the other side?
Zaka, thank you. Let me first make a point on the Modi factor and then on the mahila factor. You're absolutely right. Prime Minister Modi remains one of the largest vote aggregator that modern Indian elections has seen. But I would like to caution the way we have been reading this number in two ways. One, Lok Sabha election tends to become much more bipolar, and that's why the party which is leading is likely to get more votes. Meaning what happens that smaller independent players basically get marginalized and party which is leading gets higher vote share in Lok Sabha election. So it's not entirely just Modi factor which is drawing the gap between the Assembly and Lok Sabha election. And second point related to this is, yes, in the past, Modi has been able to carry that vote for the party. But would that happen in the same way in 2024? That still remains an open question. The second point on mahila vote, again, BJP seem to have now some advantage among women voters, but that advantage is largely coming in the Hindi heartland states. As you also pointed out that in Bengal, in Karnataka, in Tamil Nadu, those also go to opposition party. So mahila vote is much more sort of like fragmented and complicated. And it's not just dependent on welfare. I think what we are we are sort of like reducing that women vote is solely driven by this material interest and welfare, rather than there could be multiple things that may be driving this vote share.
No, so can I just press on that first point that you made that, let's not take the Modi factor for granted. Why do you say that?
Because one, there is like 10 years now. It is, and in both times, in 2014 and 2019, there was an emotive element in election. In 2014, there was a large move against the incumbent UPA government. And in 2019, because of Pulwama Balakot, there was a nationalism move. This is not to take away any credit from Prime Minister's popularity, but those emotive appeals, national emotive appeals, were able to basically create more vote. In 2024, because you don't have a similar nationally emotive sentiment, Modi factor, even if it works, it may not work in the same degree as it worked in the past.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's look at the third factor before I come to Sanjeev Srivastava. And frankly, in my mind, this election hinges on this third factor. We've talked about this in 14, we've talked about this in 19 as well. It is the direct fights between the Congress and the BJP. There are 186 constituencies where there is a direct fight between the Congress and the BJP, bulk of them in Western India, in Northern India, in Central India. Let's take a look at these direct fights. 186. In 2019, the BJP won 170 out of these 186. That is massive. They won 55% of the vote. So more than 1 out of 2 were winning where it was direct fights between BJP and Congress. The BJP won a bulk of those seats. The Congress merely had 11 seats, a difference of vote share of 26% in fact, between the Congress and the BJP. in terms of vote share in these direct contests. So where are these states? You have Gujarat, you have a bulk of seats in Rajasthan, you have a large number of seats in Madhya Pradesh, in Delhi, of course, all 7 seats. Then, of course, there is this corridor, Himachal and Uttarakhand. Not so much in UP and Bihar. There aren't as many direct contests between BJP and Congress. And then, of course, a whole bunch of seats in Chhattisgarh and in Karnataka, particularly in northern Karnataka, where you have this bulk of this direct fights between Congress and BJP. So this was the situation as far as 2019 is concerned. Now, let's take a look at what it was as far as 2014 was concerned. So if you go back and check on 2014, again, this is where the BJP really won the election. Out of 186 seats, the BJP had 160 at just a shade under 50%, 49.29. The Congress had 30% vote share. Unless the Congress and the BJP vote share comes to somewhere in the range of 40. So BJP has to lose about 10%, Congress has to gain about 10%, and that's a massive swing election. If BJP loses 10% and Congress gains 10% in these direct fights, then what this essentially means is BJP will come down to again somewhere around the 100 range, and Congress will go up from the 20-30 to somewhere in the 70 plus range. Frankly, to my mind, this election hinges. This election, the only way this election can turn is if this number is achieved, that the BJP's number in these direct contests comes down from the 170s, 160s, comes down to about 100. And of course, because it's direct Congress versus BJP fights, this number for the Congress, which was 18 and 20 and 30 last time around, that has to go up from 30 to at least 70 plus. And Sanjeev Srivastava is from Rajasthan, so he knows a thing or two. Why should we believe, Sanjeev, that in these 186 constituencies where BJP maxed out last 2 times, the Congress is going to do any better? We haven't seen any evidence of the Congress doing better even in the assembly elections in all of these states. Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat. Where is the hope?
So, good evening, Zaka, and to my fellow panelists. I think the issue is all your 3 factors, the mahila factor, the Modi factor, and what you describe as the most crucial factor on which the election's outcome may actually hinge, the direct fights between Congress and BJP. They are all interrelated. And my one point which I would like to really make on the outset is I do understand. We do take a lot of takeaways and understand a lot of things through the prism of what happened in previous elections. But then if they were to be replicated in more or less the same manner as they did in the past, then really there would have been no use for a new election. So every election
Sanjeev, one second. You've been traveling again across the length and breadth of this country. I just described. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying it's not happened before in Indian elections. But if there has to be a 10% swing away from the BJP and a 10% gain as a corollary for the Congress, you would sense that on the ground, right? You would hear about it. People would talk about it, right? Are you seeing that? Are you picking that up in your travels?
I'm picking it up in some pockets.
Okay.
In some to several. So in Maharashtra you pick it up. In Rajasthan you pick it up. In Andhra, frankly, Congress is not a factor. In Karnataka, I haven't gone there, but one hears that it is a factor, that direct contest this time may not be so favorable to the BJP as it was the last time. And then there is this thing, just a smattering of seats, 1 here, 2 there. So the kind of record that the BJP has had in 2014 and 19 in direct fights with the Congress, I really doubt whether the same can be replicated in 2024.
So I want to come to the fourth and fifth factors.
Really open up.
Yeah, well, one second. But the 4th and 5th factors, which I think, we haven't talked about enough, because ultimately, look, let's be very, very clear about this. There was this old adage, the road to Delhi passes through Lucknow. It still passes through Lucknow. Maybe Uttar Pradesh's importance is not as much because it's not as competitive as it used to be 10 years ago or 20 years ago, because it was a multi-cornered fight. Right now, it's essentially a 2-cornered fight. But the reason why it's interesting is because the BSP, and we don't talk about the BSP's vote practically has collapsed from 2014, then 2019. And if you look at the assembly elections, the BSP is really nowhere on the scene. In the 2014 assembly election, and you compare that to the 2019, the 2014 Lok Sabha and the 2019 Lok Sabha, Remember, in 2019 Lok Sabha, the BSP and the SP combined, they fought together. 75% in those constituencies, the vote transfer happened, right? This is essentially the Jatav vote. We're talking about the core vote of the BSP. So in 75% of the constituencies, the vote transfer happened between the BSP and the SP, where the Jatav vote is concerned. Now, if you look at the Muslim vote, because remember, Mayawati last time around as well, and this time around, has fielded 30% of her candidates are Muslims. So has there been sort of talmail, if you will, as far as the Muslim vote is concerned? In 2014, when the BSP and SP fought separately, the SP got 60% of the Muslim vote, the BSP only had 18%, the BJP had 10% of the Muslim vote. Whereas in the 2019 Lok Sabha, that number went up substantially. Almost 3/4 of the Muslim vote went to the BSP and SP combined, whereas BJP got less than 10% vote in the 2019 Lok Sabha. Now I also want to run you through very quickly the BSP's assembly share and how it's been declining, both as far as the Muslim vote and the Jatav vote is concerned. The Jatav vote in the assembly election, in 2017 UP Assembly, BSP got 87% of the Jatav vote. In 2022 UP Assembly, that fell by more than 20%. It came down to just 65%. So a 22% vote share difference of the Jatavs, which is the core vote of Mayawati, fell between the two assembly elections. And look at the BJP going up from 8% in 2017 Assembly, it went up to 21% in UP Assembly. Of course, Samajwadi Party did not get much of the Jatav vote. If you look at the Muslim vote again, between 2017 Assembly and 2022 Assembly, the Muslim vote in 2017 Assembly, Mayawati had about 20%, 19%. So about 1 in 5 Muslims voted for the BSP in 2017 Assembly. Of course, the Samajwadi Party got almost 50%. They got 46%. Whereas in 2022 Assembly, BSP had less than 10. In fact, they had just 6% of the Muslim vote. The SP had 79, almost 80% of the Muslim vote. And the reason why we're talking about this, Shazia Almi saying, Shazia Almi, ultimately, again, I come back to this point. In UP, because the BJP won 62 last time and 71 the time before that, unless there is a massive fall in Uttar Pradesh, this election is not going to open up. This election is not going to become competitive. And again, this time, because the BSP is fighting separately, the conventional wisdom is her voters or her vote will actually eat into what the SP and the Congress will get. It will only help the BJP. It will not hurt the BJP.
You know, SP, which talks so much about Muslim candidates, has actually fielded only 4 Muslims, you know, and out of, I think, 64 or 62, I don't have the correct number. But look at Mayawati. If you see how many tickets she's given to Muslims, it's almost 25%. So that's huge. So in terms of infighting also, and fights being triangular in certain parts, I'm sure that BSP would be undercutting and taking away some voters from SP Congress combined. But I think despite all that, you know, people talk about waves, people talk about trends, you shred everything constituency-wise, caste-wise, class-wise, gender-wise. But you know, there is an enduring emotion, and I see that, and it's silent, and it's just the credibility of Prime Minister. And
there was a time. There was a time.
Mayawati to galvanize.
Shazia, one second. There was a time when Mayawati got 22, 23% vote share. That's been consistently coming down. Last election, she had less than 8% vote share. The point is, where are those voters going? Are they going to BJP or are they going to Congress and SP? I believe in the last few elections, in fact, there is evidence to show that a lot of those voters have gone to the BJP and not to the SP or to the Congress. Yes, Sanjeev. But he believes
and I believe that this is not happening this time.
Okay.
Because one has to look at the election in totality.
Got it.
The BJP's and the Prime Minister's appeal vis-a-vis 2014 and 2019 looks considerably diminished.
Okay, we'll
And
see.
so
We'll know on the 4th of June. In fact, we will know before that. Guys, I'm really out of time. I'm really out of time. Sorry about that. I'm completely out of time. We will know, in fact, before the 4th of June. We will know tomorrow, starting 5 p.m., the 1st of June, which is the exit polls. 6:30 is when we'll have the first set of numbers. And it is going to be massive, ladies and gentlemen. News 18 has the biggest exit poll, more than 1 lakh respondents, 518 constituencies, 21 states. From 5 p.m. our coverage starts, so do join us. Quick break. On the other side, BJP President JP Nadda in conversation with my colleagues Aman Sharma and Pal Mehta in this exclusive conversation. Right on the other side.